Ladies and gentlemen, you see, it all begins with awareness, not the kind that demands attention from the world, not the type you post about or announce, but the quiet, honest awareness of who you are and what truly matters to you. Most people go through life wearing layers of noise, opinions, expectations, fears, the pressure to prove something to someone. But the real breakthroughs happen when you strip all of that away and ask yourself, what do I want? What drives me? What am I afraid of? What do I believe in? That kind of focus doesn't come from being loud. It doesn't come from convincing others that you're working hard or chasing something great. It comes from going inward, shutting off the world for a moment and listening to yourself. And that can be uncomfortable. It's not always fun to confront your thoughts without distraction, but it's in that silence that you begin to hear what actually matters. When I was younger, I used to think success came from working harder than everyone else and telling the world about it. But I learned that the world doesn't need to know your process. It only needs to see your result, and you can't get there if your energy is always scattered, always trying to get recognition for steps that haven't even led you anywhere yet. There's a reason why some of the most effective creators, thinkers, and innovators spend so much time alone. It's not about isolating yourself from people. It's about eliminating the noise long enough to hear your own voice. When you focus on yourself, when you're not performing for anyone else's expectations, something starts to shift. You begin to notice what excites you, what bothers you, what keeps showing up in your thoughts. That's not random. That's your direction. That's your internal compass trying to guide you towards something bigger than just a goal that's guiding you to purpose. But here's the hard part. Focusing on yourself means being okay with not being seen for a while. It means not rushing to explain what you're working on. It means not trying to justify your decisions to people who can't see the full picture. That silence, it's powerful, because while you're focused inward, everyone else is wasting energy outward. They're talking, you're building, they're seeking approval, you're seeking clarity, and when the time comes, the difference will show. You don't have to announce every chapter while you're writing the book. Most of the meaningful progress in life happens behind the curtain. Growth is messy, it's inconsistent, it's filled with doubt. But when you stay focused on yourself, you start to embrace that mess, you learn from it. You realize that the opinions you were so worried about, most of them don't even matter. Most people are too busy worrying about their own lives to truly care about yours, and that's freeing, because it means you don't need to perform. You just need to be honest with yourself and disciplined with your energy, and don't confuse silence with passivity. Silence doesn't mean you're doing nothing. It means you're doing everything that matters, without the need for applause. You're not reacting, you're not chasing, you're choosing. That's focus, and that's rare. When you operate from that space, things start falling into place, not because the world suddenly changes, but because you do. You become more intentional, more precise. You stop wasting time on things that aren't aligned with where you're going. And the people who are meant to understand, they'll see it, they'll feel it, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to stay committed to the work, to the vision, to the process. When I speak about focusing on yourself, I'm not talking about ego. I'm talking about alignment, about integrity, about showing up every day and doing the work even when nobody's watching. Especially when nobody's watching, that's where the magic is. That's where the transformation happens. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The world will try to distract you with noise. It will try to pull your attention in 1,000 directions. But you only need one, your own. You only need one voice to follow, your own. And the sooner you trust it, the clearer everything else becomes. We live in a time where people feel the need to announce every step they take. Every goal, every move, every half-formed idea is shared, posted, broadcasted, before it even has a chance to become real. But here's the truth. Real growth doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't even need to be seen. The most important changes you'll ever make in your life will happen quietly, when no one's watching, when no one's cheering you on, and when it's just you doing the work. There's something sacred about that silence, something powerful, because in the silence there's no pressure to perform. There's no scoreboard, no judgment. It's just you, your focus, and your commitment. That's where progress is made. That's where the real transformation begins. I've seen it over and over again. People so eager to be seen doing something great that they forget to actually be great. They rush to share every move before it has weight, before it has meaning. But growth doesn't happen when you're talking about it. It happens when you're living it, when you're sitting at the desk long after the excitement is gone, when you're refining an idea for the 100th time, when you're failing quietly and trying again without anyone knowing. That's the work no one sees, and ironically, that's the work that matters the most. If you really want to build something meaningful, whether it's a career, a craft, a company, or a better version of yourself, you have to get comfortable in the silence. You have to get used to not having external recognition. You have to learn how to keep going, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because that's the moment most people quit. They mistake quiet for failure. But the silence isn't failure. It's the space where all the real breakthroughs are born. Silence is where you hear what others can't. It's where you fine-tune your instincts. It's where you stop reacting to the noise of the world and start listening to your own rhythm. And once you find that rhythm, you protect it. You don't break it to explain yourself to people who don't understand the process. You don't slow down to prove something to someone who isn't on the journey with you. You keep moving, you keep building, and you let the silence be your ally. Because what happens in that silence? You get stronger, you get clearer. You stop chasing attention and start building momentum. You stop needing validation and start trusting your own judgment. You start seeing what's working, not because someone told you it is, but because you can feel it. You can measure it through your own growth, your own discipline, your own ability to show up and do the hard thing day after day without recognition. There's nothing glamorous about that process. It's not exciting. It's not something people post about, but it's what separates the ones who finish from the ones who fizzle out, the ones who stay consistent from the ones who burn out looking for quick approval. And sometimes the best thing you can do is shut the door, turn off the noise, and just get back to work. Not because the world is watching, but because you promised yourself that you would. That promise to yourself, that inner agreement, is worth more than 1,000 likes or retweets. It's worth more than a room full of applause, because when you grow in silence, when you evolve in private, you don't just change what you do, you change who you are, and eventually that growth becomes impossible to ignore. Not because you said anything, but because everything about you begins to reflect it. Your energy changes, your presence changes, people can feel it. They might not know what you've been doing, but they'll know something is different. That's the impact of silent work. It echoes louder than any speech ever could. So let the world wonder, let them guess, let them think you're quiet. You're not quiet. You're focused. You're not invisible. You're building. And when it's time, you won't have to say a word. Your results will speak for you. There's something most people never really learn how to do, protect their energy, and I'm not talking about rest or taking a vacation. I'm talking about being selective, ruthlessly selective, with what you give your time, your thoughts, and your presence to, because not everyone deserves access to you. Not every conversation is worth having. Not every opinion is worth considering, and not every situation needs your reaction. When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you start to see how much energy you were wasting explaining yourself to people who didn't really care, trying to prove something to people who were never going to get it, reacting to noise that had nothing to do with your path. All of that takes a toll. It drains you. It scatters your focus. It steals time from the things that actually matter. And here's what I've learned. When you stop giving people easy access to your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, you start to regain control. You get clearer, you get stronger, because energy is like currency. If you keep spending it on everything and everyone, you won't have anything left for the things that truly matter. People think strength is loud, that it's standing in a room and dominating every conversation, that it's showing everyone how much you know or how hard you're working. But that's not real strength. Real strength is restraint. It's being in a room full of noise and not needing to add to it. It's having the discipline to hold your focus, to protect your peace, to stay on your path, Even when people don't understand it, and they won't understand it, not always, people might take your silence personally. They might mistake your distance for arrogance. Let them. You don't need to explain a thing. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to build something real, and that takes more than just time and talent. It takes energy. Energy you can't afford to waste on the wrong people, or the wrong conversations, or the wrong distractions. There are people who thrive off chaos. They want to pull you into their drama, their doubt, their criticism. Not always out of malice. Sometimes it's just habit. They don't know any other way to function. And if you're not careful, they'll pull you in without you even realizing it. Suddenly, you're defending yourself. You're explaining your vision, your second, guessing your steps. For what? To make someone else comfortable. To gain approval that doesn't even move you forward. You have to recognize when your energy is being drained. You have to be able to feel it. When something doesn't sit right, when a conversation leaves you tired instead of inspired, when being around certain people feels like work. That's your cue. That's your signal to step back, to protect your energy, because once it's gone, it's gone. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole day pouring yourself into things that don't fill you up in return. You don't owe the world constant access to you. You don't have to explain what you're doing every step of the way. You don't have to share every goal before it's finished. Silence is your filter. It's how you keep your energy clean. It's how you preserve the strength you need to keep showing up, keep pushing forward, keep creating. There's a quiet power in walking away from things that don't serve you, not with anger, not with noise, just a simple, silent decision. This isn't for me. And you move on. You protect your space. You protect your time. You protect your mind, and here's the thing. When you protect your energy, you become more effective. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop scattering your attention and start channeling it. You begin to focus on quality, not quantity, depth, not noise, progress, not performance. Some people might never notice the shift. Others will feel it immediately, but again, that's not your concern. You're not here to be available to everyone. You're here to become who you were meant to be. That kind of clarity, that kind of focus, only comes when you stop giving yourself away too easily. There's something powerful about letting your work speak for itself. In a world where everyone is constantly talking about what they're doing, what they plan to do, what they think of what others are doing, the people who stand out are the ones who don't need to say much at all. Because when you're really doing the work, when you're putting in the hours and staying focused, the results eventually speak louder than anything you could say. You don't need to tell the world you're focused. You don't need to constantly explain that you're working hard. You just need to show up every day, do the work, and keep going, even when no one's clapping, even when no one's watching. That's where the foundation is built. Quietly, relentlessly, and then one day the work speaks, and when it does, you won't need to justify it, defend it, or promote it. People will feel it. The truth is, the need to constantly announce your efforts comes from insecurity, from the fear that if you're not seen trying, people will think you're doing nothing. But think about that for a second. If the only reason you're working is so people know you're working, you're already off track. The real breakthroughs happen when you stop needing to be seen and start needing to improve. When you stop proving and start building, that shift changes everything. Because here's the thing, when you're focused on being loud, you're not focused on being great. And greatness takes focus. It takes solitude. It takes hours of doing boring, difficult, often thankless work while everyone else is out trying to get noticed. It's not glamorous, it's not quick, but it lasts. Because it's real. I've seen people get caught in the trap of trying to make noise before they've built anything. They hype up every idea before it's ready. They chase attention instead of excellence. And what happens? The excitement burns out, the momentum fades, and they're left with the same empty space they tried to fill with noise. That's what happens when your words outrun your work. But when you flip that, when you let your work lead, you build something solid. You create something that doesn't need to be sold with words, because the impact is obvious. People can see it, they can feel it, they can't ignore it. And the beautiful thing about results is that they speak in every language. They don't need translating, they don't need defending, they just exist, and there's something deeply satisfying about that. about walking into a room and not having to say a word because your presence already says it all. That's the kind of power that can't be faked. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's undeniable. People underestimate the value of patience. They want things to happen now. They want the recognition before the work is done. But that's not how real impact works. Impact takes time, mastery takes time, and during that time, silence is your ally. Because when you're not performing for approval, you can actually improve. You can get better. You can fail in private. You can adjust without judgment. You can move without needing permission. That's what silent progress gives you. Freedom. The freedom to grow without limits. The freedom to move at your own pace. The freedom to surprise people, not because you've been hiding, but because you've been working. And I promise you, the surprise is worth it. The moment when your results walk into the room before you do. The moment when people ask how you did it, and all you can say is, I just stayed focused. That's the moment you realize you never needed the noise. You never needed the approval. You just needed the work and the patience to let it speak for you. So if you're in that quiet place right now, head down doing the work, feeling unseen, good, stay there. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let your results be the answer to questions they haven't even asked yet. One of the hardest lessons to learn in life is how to stop letting the outside world shape your inner world. We grow up constantly absorbing other people's expectations, what success should look like, what happiness should feel like, what path we're supposed to follow. And before we know it, we're not living our own lives anymore. We're performing, reacting, comparing, measuring ourselves against standards we didn't even choose. But when you focus on yourself and stay silent, something changes. You start to hear the difference between your voice and the noise, and make no mistake. The noise is loud. It's everywhere. People telling you what you should be doing by now, what you should own, how you should act, who you should be like. And if you're not careful, you'll chase a version of life that's never actually meant for you. You'll achieve things that don't fulfill you. You'll reach goals that don't bring peace, because they were never yours to begin with. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose your focus. It's a trap disguised as motivation. You see someone else doing something great, and instead of being inspired, you start to question yourself. You think maybe you're behind, maybe you're not enough, maybe you're doing it all wrong, but the truth is their journey has nothing to do with yours. Their timing is not your timing. Their success doesn't mean your failure. When you give too much attention to what others are doing, you lose sight of what you should be doing. You start changing direction every time you see someone else succeed in a different lane. You dilute your progress by trying to match someone else's pace. But what you don't see is the full picture, the struggle behind their success, the price they paid, the reasons they made the choices they made. You're comparing your behind, the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That's not just unfair, it's destructive. And that's why silence is so important. When you stay silent, you shut out the need to perform. You stop looking sideways. You stop broadcasting your every step just to prove you're making progress. You start moving with purpose, not pressure, and in that silence you reconnect with something so many people have lost, the ability to choose your own direction without second guessing it every time someone else shines. You'll be tempted to look around, you'll be tempted to explain yourself, but you don't have to. You don't owe the world your strategy. You don't owe them your timeline. You owe yourself your focus, and focus doesn't survive in a noisy environment. It thrives in clarity, and clarity only comes when you turn the volume down, on the outside and on the inside. I've seen people lose years of their life chasing things they never wanted, just because someone else made it look good. And then one day they stop and realize they've built a life that looks successful on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. That's the cost of comparison. That's the danger of letting noise guide you instead of your own values, your own instincts, your own truth. When you focus on yourself, really focus, you start to recognize what actually matters to you. Not what impresses people, not what looks good in a post, what matters to you. And when you stay silent about it, you protect it. You give it the space to grow without being judged or pulled apart before it's ready. You give yourself time to learn, time to adjust, time to grow without constantly explaining why. And that kind of peace, that kind of clarity, it's rare. because most people never stop long enough to find it. They're too busy reacting, too busy proving, too busy comparing. But when you step out of that cycle, when you stay focused and stay silent, you move differently. You're not rushed, you're not shaken, you're not lost, you're grounded. There comes a point where you have to stop explaining and start living. Stop justifying your path to people who were never meant to walk it with you. Stop offering your energy to conversations that don't push you forward. And stop diluting your power by giving away too many pieces of yourself. There's real strength in moving in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you finally understand that not everything deserves a response. Not everything requires your voice. Silence isn't weakness, it's control. In fact, most of the time, silence is the loudest thing in the room. It demands attention because it's rare. Everyone is so used to reacting, to defending, to proving. But when you don't react, when you don't rise to every comment or challenge or criticism, you show a different kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that doesn't seek attention, the kind that's rooted in clarity and conviction. Let people think what they want, let them guess, let them project their own insecurities onto your calm. That's not your business. Your job isn't to correct them, it's to keep going. And sometimes, the best way to keep going is to keep quiet, because the more you explain, the more permission you're unknowingly asking for. And you don't need permission to grow. You don't need approval to improve. You don't need applause to be on the right path. The people who understand you won't need an explanation. The people who don't understand you won't believe one anyway. So why waste time trying to be understood by everyone? It's not a good use of your energy. It's not a good use of your mind. Every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, ask yourself one question. Will this help me build, or is it just another distraction? Most of the time, it's the latter. Growth is personal, and personal doesn't mean public. You don't owe the world a play of your transformation. You don't have to document every step, every failure, every breakthrough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is evolve quietly. Let your progress unfold in silence. Let your life change without warning anyone. That kind of silence, it builds power. Because while other people are trying to be seen, you're becoming someone worth noticing. While they're seeking praise, you're seeking purpose. And that difference, it shows, not in your words, but in your presence, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you don't need to speak just to fill space, in the way you walk into a room and don't need to announce who you are, because your energy already did it for you. When you stay silent, you give yourself room to breathe. You give your ideas time to form. You allow yourself space to grow without having to defend every inch of that growth. Silence becomes your shield against doubt, against noise, against the pressure to prove something every day, because you already know what you're building. And when you know what you're building, you stop feeling the need to explain the blueprint, and eventually the results speak. They always do. When you've put in the time, when you've done the work, when you've stayed consistent through the silence, the result becomes your loudest statement. And that moment, it's worth every quiet hour, every ignored comment, every time you held back when you could have clapped back. That's when you realize you never needed to say anything, because the work said it for you. So protect your peace, protect your process. Let people wonder, let them talk. Let them fill the silence with whatever they need to believe. You don't owe them a single word. All you owe is your commitment to your path, your growth, your vision. And when it's time, when it all comes together, you'll realize the silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything you needed to become who you are.